This is the first screencast in a series of screencasts that I plan to do. And what I want to talk about is workflows. Essentially, what happens is that to achieve a certain objective or a certain task, we have certain tools or certain software packages that work well with each other. They may be from the same publisher, they may be completely independent, they may be related, they may be completely unrelated, but essentially all of these tools form a nice tool chain and they work together. And it's very difficult for new users to figure out what these tools are that work together, what tools do not work together, and how to make them, how to set up or configure them so that they do work together. So and all of these sort of form a workflow. And so what I want to do right now is to share some of my workflows by doing these screencasts, which is a fairly low effort way for me to share this. So the first thing I want to do in this one is to help install Virtualbox, which is a way to run a virtual machine on your existing PC. And that's important for one very simple reason, and that is it allows you to do experimentation and tinker with stuff, and allow you to do stuff that might break your system without actually touching your main system. So essentially what it does is it creates a virtual machine within your existing OS, and you can do whatever you want in that, and worst case you can take a backup if something goes sideways, restore to the earlier one, and you're done. The second big advantage of using VirtualBox or any virtualization software really is that it decouples the operating system or the system from the hardware. So we used to have an instance of a software running on a server which was running in a VirtualBox. So at one point we had to upgrade the hardware, run the same software but on a new machine. All we had to do was copy the virtual machine over to the new hardware and we were done. We did not actually have to reinstall drivers. We didn't have to do anything else that would have affected the software in question. So that's another really useful use case for VirtualBox. So I think let's get started. Okay, so I found these instructions online, and I know that they worked once earlier. So I'm just going to go with this and let's see. So I'm just going to make sure that our packages are all up to date. So you just do a quick update, and then you're just going to make sure that we don't have any pending dependencies that are there. We go. So basically everything is up to date and we can go ahead with the installation. So this is the first one. Essentially what this is doing is it's adding the key, security key for VirtualBox for the repository. So there you go, that's done. Next is another key. I'm not sure what this is for. Okay, so there are two keys. So let's go and add this as well. So okay, now so for Ubuntu 20.04 we need to do this, and because I'm running 18.04 we are going to run this command here. And what basically this is doing is so it's going to create a line that says deb architecture is AMD 64, this URL and this $LSB release is basically going to be we can try running that. It's going to give us the name of the kernel, and so if I do this is what I get, the OS version and things like that. And if I do LSB release -SC, then I get the code name. So that's Bionic. So it's going to add this line into a sources.list type file. So let's go and add this in. So in general, always be very careful when you copy paste commands into the terminal from anywhere. Be very careful. I of course have read these before, so that's okay. But in general, never ever copy and paste commands into your terminal without checking each and everything and making sure that you know what's going on. So this command is going to install the Linux headers and a package called dkms, which are needed for Virtualbox. So we are nearly done here. So I'll just let this finish and then I will get back. Okay, so the dependencies are done. Now we need to actually install the Virtualbox package. Hopefully this should work. There we go. And yeah, it's installing. Okay, so just to make sure that you see what's going on, it's unpacked all the files and it creates this a group, which is you know, the Linux permission system. It creates a user and a group, I believe, which will be used when assigning permissions. So you want Virtualbox, the application, to be able to access devices like USBs or say CD drives or anything like that. And so for that this will be necessary. So just bear in mind that the Virtualbox application will be using this group called vbox users. Okay, so the installation has completed. It seems to have gone off without any issue. So all you have to do is to start Virtualbox, just go into your applications or activity sections in Ubuntu or GNOME and hit Virtualbox. Right now, of course, because I am using a dual monitor setup, you don't see the primary monitor. So let me just take a second and show you what it looks like. Okay, so you should now be able to see this dual display setup that I've got going here. And since Virtualbox has successfully installed, it's now ready to go. So all you have to do is click up here in the activity section or just hit the Windows button and type out Virtualbox, and there you are. So you can just single click on this and then Virtualbox will start. Okay, so now just double clicking on that launcher icon, we now have Virtualbox going. We need to install a couple of things that I will walk you through and then install the actual OS. So that's Virtualbox all ready to go. Okay, so one of the things that we need to do before we get started is to install what I believe is called a Virtualbox add-ons pack. So let's go find that first. Virtualbox, there we go. So we don't want to search for images, we need this one. It's called an extension pack, sorry, it's called an extension pack. And where would we find it? I believe there you go, 6.1. yeah, so this is needed because we need support for USB devices, things like remote desktop, encryption and other stuff. So that's why we need this. The same version install pack as your installed version of Virtualbox. So yeah, so we are going to install this 6.1 1.12. So there we go. So this is what we download. We would save that to the downloads directory, and now that this is downloaded here, I'm going to switch to VirtualBox and try and install the extension pack. So there's the extensions. I go here, select the extension pack, there we go, and install. So these are the license agreements. I've read these before, so but you should. Okay, so this is asking me for password, for which, and so after giving my administrative password, now hopefully, yes. So the installation of the extension pack also has happened successfully. So we've got that working, and that means that any virtual OSs or operating systems that we install on this will be able to access things like CD drives, USB drives, and all the other hardware that we talked about. Okay, so now we come to actually creating a new machine. So to do that, we say new, creating a virtual machine. So we are creating a new virtual machine. I'm going to call it VB hyphen Ubuntu hyphen 01. VB just as a convention for VirtualBox, Ubuntu because it's going to be an Ubuntu machine, and 01 because it's going to be the first one in the series that I may create. Machine folder. So where are the files for this machine going to go? They go in the default directory. That's fine. Type Linux. You can select anything among this. If you have Windows, you can install Windows also. But for now, we are going to do it purely on. We are going to install a Ubuntu OS. So this is going to be Linux, and which version we are going to install Ubuntu. So 64-bit Ubuntu. You can see that there are so many options here, and we could go to expert mode where we can set a lot of things very carefully, but otherwise we can use the guided mode as well. So let's switch back to guided mode, and let me set this back to what I initially had in mind. Linux, Ubuntu 64-bit, that's fine. Next. So next thing it asks you is how much memory do you want to allocate. So I have 8 GB already present on the machine, and I expect I won't be doing too much on this machine, in the sense that this machine is not going to be doing a lot other than running VirtualBox. So I'm going to be a little bit aggressive and give it about a quarter of the memory that I have in all. So that's about 2048 MB, that's 2 GB. So out of 8 GB, I'm assigning 2 GB to this virtual machine. So just a quick note on terminology. The OS that is running on the machine right now, that's called the host OS, right? It's the host, and what I'm going to install inside this VirtualBox, the virtual OS, that is called the guest. So whenever we talk about host OS, we are talking about what's running on the machine, and when we talk about the guest OS, we are talking about something that's running in the virtual environment. Okay. So now next thing, we've created a machine, we've added RAM to it. We need to allocate some hard disk space. Now hard disk space, of course, there's no real external hard disk that is available to me. So I'm going to just carve out some space in my existing hard drive, and the way it does is it just creates a file. So I'm going to create a virtual hard disk now, and all I do is create. So this, you have to be a little careful in selecting what type of hard drive you use. There are a couple of different options, and each of them has a certain performance, scalability, and size trade-off. So you need to figure that out. I won't go into those details at the moment. For now, you can just use the VDI format. That's fine. Okay. The final thing is, it's better to go for a dynamically allocated hard drive, because as your OS grows, as your guest system grows, you need to maybe allocate more space. but there are some places when fixed size is okay. So again, we won't go into discussion of why and which option should be chosen right now, but I'm going to go with dynamically allocated. There we go. So there we go. So create the size of the virtual hard disk. So this is the I believe this is going to be the initial size. Size is the limit. Okay, so for me 10 GB is going to be more than enough, but just to be conservative, I'm going to up this to 20 GB, and then all I have to do is create, and there you go. So now this is a virtual machine and it's ready to go. All I have to do is right click and say start this machine. The beauty of this is, let's say there's some for whatever reason I need to move this machine. Normally, you know, if you have a hardware machine that has some hardware issue, or machine fails, you need to back up your data, install the machine on a different system, and then start from scratch, right? Whereas with virtual machine, it's like you copy a file and your entire machine is contained in that file. So it's really convenient from a backup and scalability point of view. So now I need to start the machine. There's a couple of ways in which I can start. One is called normal start. One is called headless start. Normal is just, it's going to start like a normal machine. It's going to give me a display. Headless means it's going to start up as if there was no monitor connected to it. Detachable, we'll talk about it later. So let's just go and start this machine. So as of now, this machine is blank, right? It's got a hard drive, but there's nothing on it. So if I were to say start, nothing's going to happen, because it's like a blank machine. There's no OS on it. There's pretty much nothing on it. And so what VirtualBox is now telling me is that you're starting a new virtual machine and you need something to boot it up from, right? So now how do I boot it up? So I need some ISO file, that's the image for the OS or something like that. So let's go find the image that I can use. Okay, so as I mentioned, if I try to boot this without the bootable media or bootable system in it, is going to give this error, right? So no bootable medium found, system halts, and there's nothing much you can do. So I'm going to go get an installer for Ubuntu 20.04, which I want to install in this, and then we'll continue. All right, so now I have acquired this Ubuntu installation CD. This is the live CD, and this is the image of that live CD. So let's basically virtually insert the CD into this machine. And so to do that, all I do is go to settings and I go to storage. There's already, you can see a CD drive controller that's already there, and this is empty. So all I have to do is select live CD and choose a file. I've already got 20.04, and all I have to do is say OK. And just to make sure that this is going to boot from the CD, let's see if we can change the boot order. So I believe it should be somewhere here. System. Okay, I can't seem to find out a boot setting, but I do know that this is the only bootable media that is available, and so the machine should boot from there. So all I have to do is select this and say start, and we should be good to go. There you go. So now select boot device. It's already selected the 20.04 live CD, and things should start. There we go. things should start booting. Okay, so a couple of questions, a couple of pointers about these things. You have auto capture keyboard turned on, that's fine, we want that on. Virtual machine reports that guest.os supports mouse pointer integration. Essentially what it means is that you don't need to assign the mouse to either the guest or the host machine. Virtualbox will figure out what's going on and assign the mouse correctly. So I can close this off as well. And for now this is running in a windowed mode, but later on we can switch to full screen mode. Now the concern there is how do you switch back, and especially if you've got only one display. The key is you need to figure out what this host key is. So let's see if we can see what that host key is configured to right now. I believe it was set to the Windows key or the super key, but if not we'll change that. So file, preferences, input, there you go. So host key combination. So host key is set to the right control key. So let's give that a try right now. I have this running. I'm going to try and put this in full screen mode by using the right control key and F. There we go. So it's giving me this warning and I say yes, switch. So I want to install Ubuntu on this virtual machine. I'm going to say install. Language English, normal installation, download updates, yes. Actually no, I'm not going to say download updates because I want this installation to happen fairly quickly. So normal installation, third party software, yes, and continue. So this is a fairly standard installation. We are not going to we should not see any significant issues while doing this. Okay, so now I'm going to just install Ubuntu on this entire system. So I'm going to say erase disk and install Ubuntu. And so what happens is the virtual hard disk that I created, the entire virtual hard disk, which means a file on my actual hard disk, is going to be used up for Ubuntu. So I can say install now and sit back and wait for the installation to complete. Continue. Of course, this Ubuntu, the guest OS, that is 20.04, has no idea, at least in any practical terms, that it's running on a virtual machine. So the way this runs should be no different from if it were running on a real machine. So here I'm going to say, I'm just going to create something like this. Computer name, I'm going to assign it whatever we did in, there you go. So VB user, and then I'm just going to set a password right there, and then I'll set a password and then I will hit continue. Okay, so I've got the password entered. I say continue and let it complete installation. So now the installation is running pretty much as normal. I'm going to let it finish, and then once it's done, then we'll see how things have gone. All right, so the installation has completed, and the machine basically says press enter to reboot, and I've done that. The machine has powered off and now it's going to reboot. But before that, all we have to do is to remove the CD-ROM from the drive, otherwise it's going to boot from the CD drive again. So all we have to do for that is to go to the storage tab here. So the storage tab here, and we select this drive and I need to say remove disk from virtual drive. So it's the physical equivalent of that would be ejecting the CD-ROM. So once I do that, I can now select this and just hit start, and it should boot up like a normal machine. So there we go. We've got the new machine running. I'm going to say full screen, and there we go. So now this Ubuntu 20.04 is now going to start booting up. So I see one message, error message there, failed to start something. I don't think it should be a problem, but if it is, we'll look into it later. Alright, so I'm just going to go enter my password, and we are in. So now this is the first boot up. Hopefully everything has installed correctly. Things should be fairly smooth. There are a couple of things to keep in mind. We'll talk about those later to improve performance. We need to make sure that enough graphics memory has been assigned to this OS, and to make sure that 3D acceleration has been enabled. And so we'll come to that once I've checked out to make sure that the basic things are all running. So I'm just going to say skip here. I don't want to link any accounts because it's a virtual machine. I'll be sharing the image for this virtual machine. Live patch, no, I don't want to set it up right now. Yes, send info to canonical, that's fine. And location services, no, I'll keep this off for now. Ready to go. Software, yeah, I think we'll install whatever is needed as we go along. So there we have it. So this is completely virtual, Ubuntu OS that's running. So now first thing that you may notice is the fact that the display resolution, right? So if I select display, you'll see that the display resolution is going to be some very low value. I think it's going to be 1024 by 768, which is like the base resolution. And the problem, that's a problem because Ubuntu right now is running in a purely virtual system and doesn't know that the underlying hardware can support graphics acceleration. So it's not going to even try to support like a full HD or HD monitor. So, so once the OS is installed, what we need to do is install what is called the guest add-ons. So it's essentially a package that runs within the guest OS and tells the guest OS how best to use the resources that are available to it in this virtual environment. So that's Firefox starting up right now, and again there's no need to use Firefox in the virtual environment. I can just pull up Firefox in my host machine. Of course it's going to be a little bit faster here. There we go. It's called guest editions. So once we have this here, so all we have to do is install these two things. Okay, so multiverse is already enabled. I'm just going to do sudo -s so we don't have to keep entering our password. Component already enabled. Now all I have to do is this, the second command. There we go. Continue, yes. Okay, so it's going to progress, and I'm just going to pause the recording and get back in once it completes. Alright, so the installation has completed and I've just done a reboot after that, and as is clear here, what has happened is that now Virtualbox is able to detect the correct screen resolution, and if I just pull up my display settings, it's basically able to detect the correct resolution of my inbuilt display, which is this odd 1366 by 768 value. And you may need to set this manually after the reboot, but if not, it should generally take it automatically. So that's pretty much it. So this is the base machine installed, Ubuntu 20.04. So just one other thing that's worth noting. So what I had done is to change the base memory and increase it to 4 gigs. I have allocated 4 CPU cores and set the execution cap to 100%, and I have also enabled higher graphics memory of 64 MB, that's almost half of what I have, and enabled 3D acceleration. So for all practical purposes, this virtual Ubuntu runs as smoothly and as fast as if it were a real machine, and there's basically no perceivable difference, at least at this point. Managing this machine is pretty much the same as you would manage a real machine. To turn it on, turn it off, you can use these menus here, and so I'm going to just power this off, and basically it's going to go back to the default VirtualBox menu. So that's it. See you next time.